Welcome to another Top 5 with Kris 5, guys. Today we're gonna check out all of the best decks after the latest patch came out, so you guys know what you should be playing with, as well as what you're playing against. We're gonna go over the decks, show you their mulligans, win rates, as well as some general tips, so you know what you should be doing with them. So if you're serious about Hearthstone, drop a like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget you can hammer some Hearthstone coaching. Now, let's check out the decks.
You are not prepared!
The first deck on the list is still actually going to be Handbuff Pally, and it's still doing very strongly, with above 62% win rate and over 1000 games. This particular variant is going for the Excavate package again, and we have a little bit of Observer of Mysteries so you can slow down the opponent, and you can also equip the weapon with ease that way. And the key thing to remember with this one is you kind of want to be playing with when the opponent already has something on the board, so you actually have a realistic shot of it actually triggering those secrets for that turn. If you play this guy on an empty board, odds of you actually whiffing with the secrets are quite bigger, but in some cases it's also not the worst thing in the world to do, because it still might make the opponent play awkwardly, preventing them from using a spell or something like that, or even just getting yourself a random free drop, so take that advice with a grain of salt. We have a single Glacial Shard in here, and this can help you against some early big minions, like let's say against Pain Warlocks and such. You could also freeze opponent's face like that, like even in the mirror matchup you could prevent from the opponent Pally to be buffing up and whatnot. We also have a couple of Drone Deconstructors, and the cool thing about these guys is they're like a poor man's outfit tailor, because they give you a 1/1 mech you can actually slap a ton of buffs on, and afterwards magnetize to something else. The Excavate package helps you buff everything else with +3/+3, just don't forget if you're gonna be discovering a minion, make sure to do that if you can, before you play the +3/+3, because if you haven't discovered it, it's not gonna get the buff. We also have Maggot in here, which draws you tons, cause the only spells we have in here are a couple of Shroomscavates. And yeah, the rest is pretty standard stuff. The Ziliax in this one is gonna be the Perfect module plus the ticking module, so you can get yourself a cheaper healing Zilly, which is basically like a third Tigris plushie for you. Your main win condition with this one is not to OTK the opponent with something like Leroy. You're not even running your deckhand, so you're not really OTKing most opponents, you're just overwhelming them with stats over and over again until they can stop answering you. Matchup-wise, here's what the stats show, and Highlander Pally apparently is not gonna be your friend, but everything else looks pretty good, so climbing should definitely not be an issue. Mulligan-wise, you're looking for the weapon, obviously. We're definitely not looking for Ziliax in most cases. Grim Street Outfitter is okay, even though it's not the most amazing thing to be doing in the early turns, but it's still something. Drone Deconstructor definitely worth the keep. Righteous is not bad, so you can have something on turn 1, even though in some cases you might even just hold back with it, if you're not expecting much from the opponent in the early turns, so you can actually buff this bad boy into something a lot more meaningful later. Kobold Miner is nice, Instrument Tech is great, Painter's Virtue is also nice, but don't keep both of them together. Like, usually it's a good idea to maybe just keep the weapon in some games, maybe just the Instrument Tech in others, but definitely not both at the same time. Tigris Plushie can be super good against some aggro potential matchups. Observer of Mysteries can also help in those. The rest you're gonna have to have a good reason to think about. As for on the coin, the situation is a little bit different here. I guess Finley becomes a lot more keepable. Definitely would not hold on to Leroy in most cases. Like, yeah, I guess you can start buffing him nice and big. But like I said, in most cases, you're not really going to be OTKing the opponent. So even if this guy becomes a 15 worth of attack, it's really not going to be the way you win. You could steal some games here and there like that, but wouldn't really shoot myself in the foot with a big fat Leroy in the starting hand. Tigris Plushie is nice, especially if you're expecting aggro. Painter's Virtue is still great, and this time it's definitely better than straight up Instrument Tech. Wow, like the win rate is so much lower. It's kind of weird, but what you want to be doing usually is on turn 3 you want to be coining out the weapon so you can start slapping with it. Drone is still nice, some more Excavate is also not bad. The rest, again, think about him. On the number 2 spot, we also have Flood Pally. Surprise, surprise, Pallies are still top tier. Shocking, I know. And this one still looks pretty standard stuff, honestly. Like, there's really nothing out of the ordinary in this particular list. It's the tried and tested straight up Flood Pally. We still run Showdown, even though it got nerfed. This thing would have been insane, by the way, if it remained at 2 mana, because I did try a Gang Greymane Flood Pally, basically, and missing this one kind of hurts, so if this was still a teardrop, this deck would have been over the top for sure. Yeah, this one in particular, you still just try to swarm the boards over and over again, try to cheat out some Sea Giants nice and quick. You have cool ways to buff them with Crusader Auras, which actually do stack nowadays, so keep that in mind. The flash sale is also pretty nice, giving you an extra 2/4 taunt with Divine Shield, which is no joke on its own. We also have Ziliax, which is also of the buff type with the +1 and -1. And we also have Terran, which can also be quite the menace, especially if you coin this out on turn 4. Getting yourself a couple of free 7s on the board is very, very hard to deal with early. And we also have Pozic in here, which is quite the sticky minion to be playing around, and it's also a double-edged sword for the opponent, because not only do they not want to be playing those free frees, but if they actually decide to do play them, you also have Prismatic Beam, which is a perfect clear for them, so that is very, very bad for them if they go into the Pozic game plan. You also have a Metis in here, and that's about it. The rest is like really, really self-explanatory. Matchup-wise, definitely a lot of stats in this one. Control Warriors are not going to be your friends, and this is Control Warrior, not Highlander Warrior. Even though Highlander is also kinda on the iffy side, but the Control Warrior is even worse for you because they have 2 of all of the good removals, whereas with Highlander, the removals are a bit more scarce for him. Even though obviously Reno is definitely no joke, but if you manage to reach a Reno turn, you probably lost anyway, so there's that. Rainbow Death Knight is on the iffy side as well, but everything else looks pretty solid. Mulligan-wise, going first, here's what we have. Ziliax is definitely not a bad card to be holding onto, especially if you have something like a Showdown, because turn 3, since we're going first here, Showdown does allow you to also drop Ziliax for only 2 mana, and usually it's going to be down to 0 mana on turn 3, because there are going to be a couple of minions on the board usually. And this way you get to do some very nice favorable trades like that. Like turn 3, you get a bunch of 4/4s straight into his 3/3s, and suddenly you have a bunch of 4/1s and a 3/5 to boot, and the opponent is going to be at a very rough spot. You want to be holding on to a single good 1-drop, don't keep more than 1 in most cases, so Miracle Salesman is your best, but Mermy is also not bad, and same can be said for Righteous, but Miracle Salesman is usually best. Unless you want to be sticking a gold banner, in which case the Righteous might also be a pretty good option. So I would definitely hold on to Righteous if I already have a gold banner in here, and that is also a pretty nice thing to be holding on to. Same with Hi-Ho, you do only have a couple of holy spells in this one in the form of Crusader Auras. So think about that if you're considering the option of actually drawing something with them. Muster for Battle is pretty nice. Boogie Down, especially if you have some curve into it, is also good. And Mining Casualties ain't bad either. Sea Giant could be a keep if you already have a Showdown in hand. And same can be said for the Prismatic Beam, but that also comes down to the matchup. Like, if you're expecting to be against a fellow Flood Pally, keeping a Prismatic Beam could be something to think about, but going first is a little bit iffy, honestly. Like, you're kind of the one who needs to be asking the questions, not holding the answers, so think about that. But Showdown plus Sea Giant or Showdown plus Ziliax definitely could be MVP. As for on the coin, here's what we have again, and yeah, here the Showdown game plan is even bigger, because turn 2 you get to coin this thing out with a Ziliax, and the situation becomes very serious for the opponent very fast. Sea Giant might also make the cut if you have these 2 in hand, even though would be nice if you also have at least a 1-drop or Mining Casualties or something. The rest looks pretty similar though. Even something like Flash Sale becomes a bit more keepable here, like getting yourself a couple of idiots on turn 2 and coining this out on turn 3 could also be pretty respectable boards. And Prismatic Beam again becomes a bit more keepable here, because here you do actually need to answer some stuff. For other good Pally decks out there, it's basically hand buffs and Flood Pallies all the way. Highlander Pally is also somewhere in there, like apparently it's not on page 1. But other than that, the other hand buff Pally with the more aggressive nonsense like South Sea deckhands is also doing quite well. A lot lesser sample size, like you see, but this is the one I showed you as the hand buff. This is the one I showed you as Flood, so we're going for the tried, true, and tested decks with very good results. Other than that, we have, what is this Just Paladin? Seems kind of weird. Very, very weird stuff. Like, what is this nonsense? Feels a little bit like an aggro. I guess some kind of holy pally or something. I don't even know, man, but it looks interesting. It's kind of like an aggro pally, apparently, but not as amazing, low sample size, so it has the wow factor, but not much else. I guess we're gonna have to scroll to page number 2 to see Highlander Pally. Here it is, 54%. And there's also not much else here. I would have expected to see some Gen Greymane Pally in the list as well, but apparently it hasn't picked up much just yet. And it kind of doesn't make too much sense to be cutting out so many good cards just so you can get extra hero powers like that, it kind of works, but probably not as good as these. We gotta be completely honest. On the number 3 spot, we actually have Hero Power Druid, which almost has 1000 games, and again is above 60% win rate, so definitely pretty serious stuff. I haven't really seen too much of this deck, if I gotta be completely honest, but apparently it's doing quite well. I'm not exactly sure why. What is it actually feeding on? It's not great against hand buff, that much has been said, but I guess it's good against Warlocks and such, so it has that going for it. It's also great against the Highlander decks, the Mining Rogue, so yeah, I guess it does have decks to feed on. And here's what this deck consists of. You have some Cactus Constructs to have good early game. You have a bunch of dragons in here with Gift Wrapped, Splish Splash, the Desert Nest Matron, obviously the Chia Drake, Faye is in here, so you can get her nice and discounted. We also fin out the deck with Take to the Skies, and that's about it for the dragons. We also have a bunch of hero power action with the Groovy Cats, which you fin out the deck with the help of Peaceful Pipers. We also have a lot of hero power nonsense in this one with popular Pixie, which makes your next hero power 0, or it refreshes it. And we also have the Sing-Along Buddy, which triggers it twice, so you could get some silly stuff like 20 damage even on a single turn, like if you already have both the Groovy Cats active, you play this thing to refresh your hero power after you've used it with the help of Sing-Along Buddy, and yeah, you basically get attacked with 20 damage worth of hero power like that, and that's not even accounting for a potential Cactus Construct, which can also discover you another cat, so you can literally be OTKing with the Groovy Cat if the game decides so. We're actually not running as much spell power nonsense in this one. We're not using the location. We don't have as many swipes in here as well. We don't have the copy. We don't have the taunts. So a very interesting list indeed. We have a couple of Observer of Mysteries, which slow down the opponent again. Trog Gem Tossers for a little bit of extra chip damage. Pozic is also an awkward minion to deal with against, so you're going to be able to chip some stuff with it. Couple of Spread the Words for easy card draw with the help of those big hero powers. Nomelia for some AoE, Faye for the healing, and Yogg so you can kill some of those unkill axes like the 8 mana Poison Reborn. Lifesteal is very annoying to deal with, and Yogg is a great way to answer those. Matchup wise, like we said, you're going to be great against most, but hand buff Pally is not going to be your forte. Everything else though looks pretty good. As for the mulligan, let's find out together what you're looking for. Obviously, Splish Splash is going to be great. Same with Gift Wrap. Desert Nest Matron might be a keep. Sheer Drake is alright, but I would probably like to be curving into it at least. Peaceful Piper is great. Cactus Construct is good. Straight up Groovy Cat could be a keep. In the end of the day, the Peaceful Piper could be used to discover a beast if push comes to shove later. And you could discover extra cast that way as well. Pozic could be okay, but try to be curving into it. Apparently Take to the Skies is also not the worst thing in the world, but it's not exactly what you're looking for, so don't overkeep it if you already don't have a good if you don't already have a good hand. As for On the Coin, again, the stats are pretty similar, and these would be your best top picks. The others you're gonna have to have good reason to consider. For other good Druid decks, I gotta be honest, I had a hell of a blast with this Highlander Druid list. I think it was this one at least, looks pretty similar. It's very fun with the help of the new Marin the Manager, and really fun deck. Like, check out the last video, see for yourself the kind of nonsense we managed to pull with it. This is the Hero Power Druid I showed you. The Hybrid Druid is still doing alright with the spell power stuff. Dragon Druid is also okay. Still running Marin. Is this even straight up Dragon? Doesn't look like straight up Dragon with Doomkins and such. Kind of an awkward list, but I guess it has some potential. The Treant Druid is also up there apparently. Dragon Treant Druid is also something pretty interesting to check out. Doesn't seem to be doing as great right now, however. So yeah, plenty of different lists to be choosing from, but Hero Power Druid seems to be best so far. Next up we have Pain Warlock, and I gotta be honest, this is one of the easiest decks to be coaching to Legend with right now, because it's so easy to actually break the game with it. Like, turn 3 dropping a couple of 8/8s for free like that, like really insane stuff. You gotta really know the meta to be able to pull off those turns. You really gotta know what opponents you can be pulling those off, where you should be going for the 8/8s, where you should be going for the 4/4s, how to utilize your Cult Neophytes or Speaker Stompers if you go that route. So it's a very intricate deck. You definitely gotta know your opponent well to know how to make the most out of those games, but it's very well worth it to play this deck right now still. And yeah, we have all of the good damaging cards like Flame Imps, like Mass Protection, like Spirit Bomb. Malefic Rook is also pretty MVP. We actually have a couple of Trog Gem Tossers in here, so you can actually finish off some opponents. A lot of the times I did notice this deck was kind of struggling at the end, but a couple of Trog Gem Tossers could help out on that front. Trolley Problems is nice little reactive stuff for you. You don't have much to react with aside from a couple of Spirit Bombs and these dudes. And I guess we can also say Symphony of Sin can do that. The Infernal obviously helps you stabilize after you've dropped your Giants. You want to be coming back to a respectable 15 health like this. Popgar can also help you heal a bunch. You can also copy your Celestial Projectionist with Popgar. That can happen as soon as turn 6, and if both the Popgar stick, you're actually going to be getting 0 mana sludges like that, so keep that in mind. Definitely is very, very awkward to play around against some opponents. Like a lot of the time, once you use both the sludges, the opponent is like, okay, well, you don't have any more fell spells, I don't care about this Popgar. And after that, you just copy it with Celestial on turn 6, you play the second Popgar, and boom, you have 0 mana, deal 8, heal 8 again, so pretty good stuff. The Sheriff, definitely don't sleep on this guy, like putting the opponent's minions to sleep for 3 turns allows you to actually put 2 minions to sleep at the same time before they actually start waking up. Just try not to be using this on rush minions or titans too much, as long as you're not planning to actually kill the opponent before that thing wakes up, because the moment something like that wakes up, they get to use it that turn. And that goes double for Titans, like it's very, very awkward to play around Titans. Blood Treant is definitely pretty nice, so you can drop yourself low enough for Molten Giants, but don't forget it doesn't discount your Imprisoned Horrors, so that's something to think about. It's actually a good strategy to be using even Celestial Projectionist on your Blood Treant, so you can actually drop the Molten Giants super soon. Like, that's the main way you're actually going to be able to drop turn 3 Molten Giants that way. So be smart about how you use these bad boys, and try not to kill yourself in the process. That's also very important, as you've come to learn. Symphony of Sin gives you a lot of potential lethal outs a lot of the time, because like I said, a lot of the times you are going to be short a little bit of damage, and that's and you have 3 ways of actually getting 6 damage from this thing. Like if you have a minion on the board, the +6/+6 works. The 6 lifesteal always is going to work, and the 6 AoE obviously also is gonna always work, but the thing about the 6 damage AoE is, if you have something like a 2/2 stuck on the board, and you're debating should you go for the +6 or for the 6 damage AoE, you gotta decide which one you're gonna be hoping for, and decide if you're attacking with that 2/2 first, or are you missing on that 2 damage potentially if you get 6 damage AoE instead of the +6/+6, so it's kind of a double-edged sword. You gotta be smart about which one you go for. Ziliax in this one is going to be with the +1 as well as the -1. I've seen some lists running the perfect module instead, with the ticking module, so you can get that for cheap again. But apparently this one is also doing quite well. And yeah, Imprisoned Horrors and Molten Giants are also great targets for your Celestial Projectionist, obviously. You can check out my detailed coaching videos, guides about this deck. Definitely is worth knowing how to play with it. Decks you're not going to be great against would be Spell Mage and apparently Hand Buff Pally. I can attest to those as well. Spell Mage, the main problem is they can burn you from a relatively healthy state. Like if you drop yourself down to 15, it's not that hard for the Spell Mage to actually kill you, even if they have like 5-6 mana. Definitely do have the capabilities to drop you if they get lucky with their elemental companions. And as for Hand Buff Pallies, they're awkward because they heal a lot and they can stabilize around turn 5, turn 6. So if you haven't zerged the shit out of them, they're probably going to be able to stabilize back to full health even. Mulligan-wise, you usually are looking for the good damaging stuff. Mass Production and Flame Imp are your best turn 1s. If you already have some good damaging stuff, Molten Giant can be a keep. I wouldn't just straight up hold on to a Molten Giant, however. It's kind of cool, but usually doesn't work out too well if you don't actually have the supporting cards for it. Elemental Geode is pretty nice, Malefic Rook is great, Blood Treant is great. Trolley Problem I wouldn't really hold on to, Imprisoned Horror I do hold on to usually. And Spirit Bomb might also be worth a keep, but this would not be your turn 1 obviously, because on turn 1, you're going to be the first on the board, so the opponent is not going to give you a target to slap onto. Don't forget you can actually use this on your own idiots as well, so if you're on a pinch for some self-damaging, you could use this on your own, let's say Elemental Geode, and that way this might actually help you drop a turn 3 4/4, let's say. And yeah, the rest, again, think about him if you really need him in that matchup. As for on the coin, the situation is similar, but here the Imprisoned Horror becomes even better. I'd say Molten Giant also becomes even better here. Blood Treant, Geode, Malefic Rook, all great options. Celestial Projectionist, might be a great option as well, especially if you have some good cards to be copying, like a second Blood Treant, like a second 4/4, heck, even a second Giant, even though that's gonna cost you some effort. Mass production is still decent, and yeah, that's about it for the really good cards to hold on to. Honestly, I could have showed you Insanity Warlock is another great deck for Warlock right now. Honestly, that was the initial plan when I started recording, but it would have been quite the miserable video, like 2 Pallies, 2 Warlocks, and a Druid, like yay, no wonder people are quitting Hearthstone. Yeah, Insanity Warlock, 60%, almost 1,000 games, definitely is up there. I'm kinda feeling awkward about this sketch artist being a part of this right now, because honestly, definitely does not feel that amazing of a card. This one is not even running the domino effect, which is kinda weird. Here's another variant, which I feel like is a bit better, honestly. But other than that, we also can see some Sludge Warlocks here and there. This one, very high win rate, very small sample size though, so it's not the monster of a deck it used to be, but it obviously is still usable. Haven't really seen too much of anything else for Warlock. I've heard about some even Warlocks out there, but as you can see, the win rates are just mediocre at best. Yeah, here's the even Warlock. 52% win rate, pretty good sample size, I guess, but it's not as amazing. Here's another variant, actually, with Gen again, 54. So yeah, this is probably the best Gen deck right now. If you're really itching to play some of that, this might be the deck for you. Mining Warlock is still up there, but nothing amazing, honestly. And lastly, we actually still have Shopper Demon Hunter doing quite well. This is the simple version. If you're in top 1000 Legend, you're gonna see a lot more of the Naga variant, which is also doing great. But this straightforward Shopper Demon Hunter is actually doing quite well as well. This one is running some of the mech package, so you can actually drop some super early Ziliax. And honestly, a lot of the time I call this deck not Chopper Demon Hunter, but Ziliax Demon Hunter, because a well-timed turn-free Ziliax can literally obliterate the opponent. A lot of the time they actually don't have jack shit to do against it. And it's a very powerful play. We also have a lot of hand damage with things like Burning Heart, Metamorphosis, a couple of weapons, the totems that give you a bunch of damage. We also have Miracle Salesman. We're even running the new Sock Puppet. It's also doing quite well, I guess. Instrument deck, so you can get your weapons faster, which got nerfed to a 4 mana now. And you also have the Shopper at the end. Pretty clean deck. You guys seen a lot of this. I also have a very detailed guide with this one, including coaching and whatnot. So give that one a check if you really want to get into this deck. Matchup wise, here's what it shows right now. Not that much stats, but from the ones we have, the popular matchups are going to be pretty good. As for the mulligan, you're usually looking for a decent 1-drop minion. The spirit ain't bad, the weapon straight up is okay, the instrument deck is okay. The Ziliax a lot of the time would be a great keep as well, especially if you have a frequency oscillator, it's actually MVP like that. Drone Deconstructor can also be definitely worth it, but if you're planning to be doing the Ziliax play with Frequency Oscillator, make sure to play Drone Deconstructor first so you don't eat up your discount, and only then use the Frequency Oscillator so you can actually still plop a turn-free Zilly. Sock Puppet ain't bad, Weapon ain't bad, Instrument Deck is fine. The rest, probably not so much. But I'm no stranger to Miracle Salesman either, so there's that. As for on the coin, it's not that different, but we can see some nuances here. Let's say through Fell and Flame becomes a lot more keepable, so you can actually answer some of the opponent's early stuff. Like if you have a Sock Puppet on turn 1, you can also make it into a 2/4 with Rush with the help of the Through Fell. Same can be said for a lot of your early game minions, obviously. Basically, it makes your Mew a little bit more reactive so you don't fall behind on the board. The Oscillator into Ziliax play here is still insane, like you can literally drop a turn 2 Ziliax that way. Not many opponents can actually handle 8/6 as soon as turn 2, guys, so don't sleep on this option. The instrument deck here is not that amazing to be holding on to. As you can see, it's a lot lower of a game plan. The weapon is still respectable, and you can still hold on to some 1-drops, but yeah, choose accordingly. For other good Demon Hunter decks, I've heard people try some Highlander Baku Demon Hunter. I did try the deck myself, definitely wasn't that amazing, and yeah, definitely seems like fitting results. 45% win rate. Am I even on the VODs for this one? Apparently no, apparently I played something a little bit different, but yeah, the deck did not feel amazing. Like I said, we also have the Shopper Demon Hunter with the Naga. Yeah, here they are, 56%, 57 with 1300. That's a lot more popular in top 1000, so if you're going for the upper ranks, you might want to know how to play with this one, and especially how to play against it. For the decks we haven't mentioned, starting off with Death Knight, here's what the situation shows. The first really populated list would be with 600 hand buff Death Knight. Not that amazing of a deck, honestly. Highlander Rainbow is doing also okay with 55, 56 with 1000 games. Plague Decay is doing respectably well, again 55 with above 1000. And it's basically a bunch of iterations of those. Moving down to Hunter. Hunter is actually doing quite well. Honestly, I could have included a Secret Hunter list in this one. Here's what the stats... Like, the stats are pretty respectable for this particular Secret Hunter. I've played this deck. It was not bad, but it's definitely not for top 1000, I can tell you that much. Highlander Hunter is also doing quite well. Spell Token Hunter is also still quite the good deck. And the rest is just iterations of these, I guess. As for mages, wow, Rainbow Mage is actually quite up there. What happened here, Chief? Like, that's some serious stuff, but looks more like a fluke than anything else. Spell Mage is probably your best bet in most cases, and we're gonna have to scroll a lot to see anything else. Elemental is still kind of playable, but definitely not amazing. Here's another Rainbow Mage with similar sample size, just some slight differences, like the win rate is hella different, so I don't know about these stats here. Maybe it's a skill issue, who knows. With Priests, Zarimi Priest is still probably your best bet. Highlander Priest is also playable. And there's also Overheal Priest here and there. I don't think it's populated enough right now for the last 3 days at least, but I have seen people do wonders with it. With Rogues, honestly, Rogue could have been in this list, but it's a very high skill cap deck right now, so from Diamond to Legend, probably not your best bet. You would see a lot of this in top 1000 Legend, but it's really an art making this deck work really well, because you gotta be very comfortable with discovering a lot of random nonsense and actually make that random nonsense work together. You can get tons of tempo with the Mining Rogue, with the help of the new Sandbox Scoundrel, and with Sonya. Like, there's really a lot of stuff you could be doing with a deck like this, but it takes a particular person to really make the most out of this one. Miracle Rogue is also up there. Again, quite far from a simple deck to really pilot masterfully, but you can definitely high roll tons with it. The rest of the decks, iterations of those two basically. Here's a Sonya Rogue, apparently that's also a thing, but it's a very 50-50 kind of deal. Moving down with Shamans, we can see that Nostalgia Shaman is at the top of the Diamond to Legend at least. Highlander Shaman is also playable. Definitely think Nature Shaman is still up there, but apparently the skill cap for this one is quite high right now. I think this is actually doing well in top 1000, but in Diamond to Legend not so much. Well, for the last 7 days at least. Yeah, here's what it looks like for the last 7 days. It's up there, but it's not what it used to be apparently. And lastly we have Warrior. Highlander Warrior also could have technically made it into this list. It's still something you see in top 1000 Legend quite often. It's actually one of the best decks in top 1000 Legend, as you can see. It is actually the best deck for the last 3 days with respectable sample size. I mean, 200 is not super respectable, but you get it. Yeah, Highlander Warrior is the way to go for Warrior. Control Warrior is also up there, but not as much. And what about the rest of them? Odin Warrior is also playable, that's for sure. Yeah, that's the Control Warrior apparently. It's Odin Warrior. And yeah, that's about it basically. Like, the Bomb Warrior definitely is not as amazing as people thought it would be. So that's gonna be it for this top 5, guys. It was actually quite a long video, huh? But I hope you found it helpful, and if you did, drop a like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget you can hire me for some Hearthstone coaching. Thanks for watching, I'm Kris05, and I'll see you in my next video or stream.